Identification of patients requiring statin therapy, FHIR progress report deliverable 3. Teams composed of Abdil, Dan, Tucker, and Ed Cerzo. I'm Ed Cerzo. I'm going to start with a high-level architectural review. For this deliverable, we had several goals. Create the application server, which represented the RESTful service in this diagram. Ensure we were able to integrate this with the CDS Hook sandbox, the initial setup of Docker, and research into calculations and calls which will need to be made when a call is made from CDS hooks into our application server. The FHIR application server, officially the Statin recommendation server, listens on a URL endpoint for incoming requests. The endpoints published are CDS services. This provides a list of all available services to CDS hooks, and CDS services statin recommendations. The statin recommendation endpoint. CDS hooks will call into this endpoint with patient information, and the server will call the risk calculation service to determine what should be returned. Next, we'll take a look at our object model. Looking at it from left to right, at the top left we have the web configuration, a necessary component for our Spring Boot server. Controller. The controller contains the two endpoints which CDS Hook Sandbox or CDS Hooks will call into. And our service, a stubbed out piece of logic which will contain the risk calculations necessary to determine what should be returned. The factories in the middle generate all of our models, and the models are representations of objects of data that we need to interact with CDS hooks. Next, I'd like to take a moment to show you the FHIR server in action. I'm within IntelliJ, our integrated development environment that we're using, and as you can see here, I've started up our Spring Boot application server. Our application server has two endpoints on it. I've exposed those endpoints by using a tool called ngrok. Ngrok makes a local endpoint, which would otherwise not be publicly accessible to the internet, available to the internet. I'm going to take that endpoint, go to the CDS Hook sandbox, add a CDS service, clicking save, and as you can see, it's discovered our endpoint. Our servers return welcome the FHIR statin identification along with a link to a potential statin calculator and recommended treatment. At this point, I'll hand the deliverable presentation over to Dan.
Thank you, Ed. Great demo, by the way. My name is Dan and I will continue with the presentation. We'll continue talking about the main components of our application. Next up is our DevOps Docker setup. We're currently researching both Docker and Jenkins and have successfully run a Hello FHIR example locally. As our next steps, we need to create the files that support more complex application needs. In this slide, we show how we built a Hello FHIR image and successfully ran a container with that image locally. Next, we'll discuss how we're doing in the next area, patient information retrieval. We're currently capable of retrieving all of the pertinent data to make a recommendation, but have discovered we have some questions. As our next steps, we will initiate contact with our sponsor to ensure we get our questions answered and further refine our calculations, as well as perform a clean handoff to the statin calculator. The statin calculator is a very challenging part of our project, but we have already become familiar with the data needed for the calculation. We also better understand the algorithm and have created the algorithm in pseudocode. The next evident step is to fully implement the algorithm and test it against the data in the Mimic3 database. As it relates to the user interface, we can say that the look and feel is complete, and it contains the main sections we need in our application. A section to perform patient searches, a section to display search results, and a section to display the CDS hooks card. Next, we will ensure that the UI is properly configured to send and receive data from our backend code. In summary, we're making quick progress in order to complete the project and have identified where we're going next in each of our main project areas. We're thoroughly engaged and looking forward to a successful project completion. Our research for this deliverable has been centered around the statin calculator. As a result, we started gathering questions to ensure the utmost accuracy in our calculations. We also seek to better understand some corner cases related to that. Last is our Gantt chart, which has been revised to include additional details and the breakdown of the tasks that are remaining in order for us to complete the project successfully. Thank you. This concludes the presentation.